There is a moment in life when everything changes, not because the world shifts, but because you do. You stop asking why things happened the way they did. You stop replaying conversations, rereading messages, waiting for an apology or a sign. And instead, you finally turn the spotlight inward, not to blame yourself, but to reclaim yourself. Because the second you do this, when you fully come home to your power, your peace, your truth, what once seemed distant suddenly begins to move toward you. Not because you chased it, but because you became magnetic to it. We don't attract what we want, we attract what we embody, and when you stop operating from fear, lack, or desperation, and you start living from confidence, clarity, and purpose, that's when everything changes. That's when people take notice, that's when doors open, that's when energy returns. So what exactly is this thing that makes someone realize what they lost and feel compelled to return? Let me walk you through 6 key inner transformations that, when fully embraced, shift the dynamic entirely. These are not tricks, these are truths. When you finally do this, he won't stay away, because you won't be the same person he walked away from. You remove the emotional hook, and in doing so, you break one of the most powerful energetic bonds that has kept you tethered to someone who may no longer deserve access to your heart. This isn't about forgetting. It's not about pretending the connection didn't matter. It's about recognizing that holding on to someone through silent desperation is no longer an act of love. It's an act of self-abandonment. The emotional hook is what keeps you wondering, waiting, and needing them to respond, to care, to return. It's the invisible thread that pulls your attention back to them over and over again, stealing your presence from the moment you're actually living in. And when you finally choose to remove it, everything changes. At first, detaching feels unnatural. You've trained yourself to seek their approval, their presence, their validation to feel secure. Their silence feels loud, and their distance becomes a wound you carry through your day. But there comes a moment, a quiet, powerful moment, when you ask yourself, what is this costing me? Your joy, your clarity, your energy. It's been pouring into a space that no longer pours back. And you realize you cannot heal in the same place that keeps reopening the wound. That's when the shift begins. That's when you begin to call all your energy back. Removing the hook means you stop seeking a response to feel worthy. You stop checking their social media for clues. You stop overanalyzing every word they did or didn't say. You stop looking for signs from the universe that they're coming back. Because the only sign you really needed was the one from within. That you are done begging for crumbs when you deserve a seat at a full table. You begin to accept that their silence is an answer, that their absence is a form of communication, that if someone wanted to be in your life, they wouldn't be a mystery. This doesn't make you cold. In fact, it makes you more compassionate toward yourself. You begin to see how much of your light you dimmed to make room for someone else's uncertainty, how much of your emotional bandwidth you spent trying to fix, chase, or convince, and in seeing that, you find your own center again. You stop needing closure, you stop needing the apology, you stop needing to be chosen, because you choose yourself. You don't do it loudly, you do it quietly with calm, you don't block out of spite, you detach out of wisdom. And something fascinating begins to happen when you do. You stop vibrating at the frequency of need, and you rise into the frequency of self-trust. You no longer carry the weight of what if, because you are now rooted in what is. The emotional hook that once kept you anchored to confusion is gone, and in its place is space. Space for peace, space for clarity, space for something new, and most importantly, space for you. You embody self-validation, and when you do, the entire dynamic of your relationships transforms. No longer are you leaning on someone else's attention to feel seen. No longer are you waiting for a text to feel valued or a compliment to feel beautiful. You stop outsourcing your worth to people who were never qualified to define it in the first place. Self-validation is the quiet revolution that happens inside when you decide, once and for all, that you are enough, not because someone told you, not because someone came back, but because you chose to believe it on your own terms. This isn't just a mindset shift, it's an energetic recalibration. It's waking up in the morning and not wondering whether they thought about you, but instead asking yourself, how can I show up for myself today? It's going through your day without checking your phone 100 times. It's putting your energy into something that actually fuels you, something that reflects the value you already carry. It's realizing you don't need someone else's love to feel lovable. You don't need their return to feel complete. You begin to see that the approval you were begging for, whether in words, attention, or validation, was always something you could give yourself, and the moment you do, you reclaim your freedom. Self-validation looks like owning your truth without apology. You don't shrink your feelings to be more palatable. You don't silence your voice to avoid being too much. You stop apologizing for your standards, your needs, your growth. You give yourself permission to want more, to expect more, not from a place of entitlement, but from a deep knowing that you are worthy of alignment, not just attachment. You begin to affirm yourself before anyone else gets the chance. You stand in front of the mirror and recognize the strength in your own eyes, not because someone else called it out, but because you see it now, and the shift is powerful. When you embody self-validation, people can feel it. You carry yourself differently. You speak with a confidence that isn't arrogance, it's certainty. You no longer question if you're good enough for them. You ask if they're good enough for the life you're building. You don't beg, you don't chase, you don't perform, you simply are, and that energy is undeniable. The same people who once kept you guessing now feel the absence of your neediness, and it makes them wonder. Not because you played a game, but because you stepped into your truth. In the end, self-validation becomes your anchor. You stop drowning in emotional highs and lows. You become steady, whole enough. And when you embody that kind of wholeness, love no longer feels like a rescue mission. It becomes an enhancement. You're not looking to be completed. You are already complete. And from that space, only the real, only the aligned, only the worthy will ever find their way back in. You set unapologetic boundaries, and when you do, you declare to the world, without saying a word, that your energy is sacred, that your time is valuable, that your heart is not up for negotiation. Boundaries aren't walls, they're gates. They don't keep love out, they keep chaos out. And once you begin setting them unapologetically and without drama, you realize how much of your peace was being drained by what you allowed in the name of love, patience, or hope. You begin to see clearly. People weren't crossing your boundaries, you just weren't enforcing them, and that stops today. When you set a boundary, you're not punishing anyone, you're honoring yourself. You're saying, this is the level at which I will engage, anything beneath it, I won't entertain. You stop picking up calls at midnight just because they suddenly remembered you exist. You stop accepting vague words as substitutes for clear action. You stop allowing inconsistency to feel like enough. And the moment you do this, something inside you shifts. You realize that love without respect is not love, that attention without effort is not enough, and that access to your life must now be earned, not given freely just because of history. At first, setting boundaries feels uncomfortable, especially if you're used to being the one who gives, the one who forgives, the one who tries. It feels selfish, it feels harsh, but over time you realize that it's actually the most loving thing you can do for yourself and for others, because clear boundaries are the foundation of healthy connection. They teach others how to treat you, they teach you how to honor yourself, and when someone truly values you, they won't be threatened by your standards, they'll rise to meet them. Unapologetic boundaries also teach you emotional discipline. You don't react impulsively when someone crosses a line. You don't beg them to understand. You simply respond, calmly, clearly, and firmly, and if they walk away, that's okay, because you've stopped abandoning yourself to keep others comfortable. You've stopped shrinking to fit someone else's version of love. You don't tolerate confusion as a form of connection. You don't engage in back and forth loops. You state what you need, what you allow, and what you will no longer participate in, and you let your actions reinforce it. People notice the shift, especially those who once benefited from your lack of boundaries, and suddenly your energy feels different to them. It's no longer available on demand. It's no longer a revolving door. You've become intentional, protective, selective, and that makes the right people respect you more, and the wrong ones disappear, which is exactly the point, because when you set unapologetic boundaries, you're not being difficult. You're being clear, you're not building barriers, you're building alignment, and from that place, the love that enters your life must meet you at the level of the respect you now demand. No more compromise. No more confusion, just clarity, peace, and power. You redirect your focus, and when you do, you reclaim all the energy that was once scattered across memories, fantasies, and unanswered questions. You realize just how much of your emotional power has been spent replaying conversations, scanning for signs, and trying to decode mixed signals. Every ounce of attention you gave to someone else's inconsistency was attention you were not giving to yourself. And when you finally decide to pull that energy back, to stop feeding what confuses you and start nurturing what fulfills you, that's when you begin to build something real, not outside of you, within you. Redirecting your focus doesn't mean you're pretending nothing happened. It means you've acknowledged what happened, and now you're choosing not to let it dominate your life. You're choosing growth over loops. Purpose over distraction. You don't wake up anymore and wonder if they'll reach out. You wake up and wonder what you can create today, what you can build, who you can become. Your attention shifts from their timeline to your own, from their silence to your voice, from their presence to your progress. This kind of shift isn't loud, but it's powerful. Maybe it starts with the gym. With journaling, with working on your side hustle, reconnecting with your passion, taking a course, creating something new. At first, it may feel like a distraction, but soon you realize its transformation. You begin to look forward instead of backward. You fill your calendar with things that bring you joy, purpose, and expansion, not with reminders of what you've lost, and over time, the obsession fades. Not because the memories disappear, but because your new reality becomes too fulfilling to keep looking behind you. As you redirect your focus, you also take your power back from triggers. You stop spiraling every time their name is mentioned or when a memory pops up. Instead, you acknowledge the feeling and keep moving. You've trained your mind to stop fixating on what you can't control and start investing in what you can. Your mindset, your energy, your future, and the more you do this, the more you rise. The more your peace deepens, the more your light returns. Suddenly, you're not just surviving a heartbreak, you're building a comeback. And the irony is, the more focused you become on your own growth, the more magnetic you become. Not because you're trying to prove something, but because peace is attractive, purpose is attractive, confidence is attractive, and when people see you flourishing, not faking it, but really rising, they begin to feel what your absence truly means. That energy you used to pour into them, now it's lighting up your life. That's the power of redirection. You don't need closure. You don't need a return. You need vision. And when you finally claim it, everything else begins to shift around you. You speak and move with certainty, and in that energy, there is no confusion about who you are, what you stand for, or what you will allow into your life. Certainty doesn't scream, it doesn't chase, it doesn't prove. It simply is. It's calm, it's grounded, and it's magnetic. When you operate from this place, people instantly feel it. They sense that something is different. Your energy no longer wavers, your words no longer seek approval, and your actions no longer revolve around someone else's presence or absence. You are rooted in who you've become, and you no longer apologize for it. When you speak with certainty, you speak truth, your truth. You don't downplay your needs to be liked. You don't tiptoe around your standards to avoid scaring someone off. You no longer fear being too much, because you now realize that the right energy will never be intimidated by your authenticity. You say what you mean and you mean what you say, not from a place of ego, but from alignment. You've done the inner work. You've sat with your pain. You've processed your past. And now you speak from a place that has depth. Not reaction, not fear, but clarity. Moving with certainty means your actions align with your values. You don't entertain what doesn't match your peace. You don't go back and forth with energy that's inconsistent. You don't accept halfway love, and you don't linger in places that make you question your worth. If someone doesn't show up with clarity, effort, and respect, you walk, not because you're playing a game, but because you've made a decision that your time, your heart, and your energy are too valuable to be gambled with anymore. You stop doing things hoping for a reaction. You stop dressing up your life to be seen. You no longer need to post the highlight reel, hoping someone takes notice, because the person you're impressing now is you. The validation you once sought externally is now internalized. You've stopped measuring your worth by how someone responds to you and started measuring it by how you feel about yourself when you're alone. That's where real power lives. That's where self-respect breathes, and yes, certainty shifts everything. It shifts the way people respond to you. It shifts the kind of opportunities that come your way. It shifts your relationship with yourself and with the world. You no longer ask, will they come back? Because you understand now that if they do, it's not because you waited, it's because you became. You don't need to force anything. Your alignment speaks louder than effort ever could. And that clarity, that conviction, that quiet inner knowing, that's what makes you untouchable. That's what makes you unforgettable. That's what makes you you. You become unavailable for drama, and in that decision, you elevate your entire life. You no longer find thrill in the emotional highs and lows, the tension, the chaos, or the confusion that once felt like love. You finally see those patterns for what they truly are: distractions, drains, addictions to intensity that kept you from experiencing the kind of peace you now protect with everything in you. You've outgrown the roller coaster. You've outgrown proving your worth to someone through endless emotional labor. You're done interpreting mixed signals, decoding silence, and tolerating inconsistency masked as passion. You now understand that real love isn't found in chaos, it's found in calm. Being unavailable for drama doesn't mean you don't feel. It means you've learned to channel those feelings in a way that heals you instead of hijacking your peace. You don't engage in power struggles anymore. You don't respond to passive aggression with desperation. You don't take the bait when someone tries to trigger a reaction. Why? Because you've learned the difference between connection and entanglement. And the minute you feel your energy being pulled into that old loop, you pause, you breathe, you choose your peace over your pride, your growth over your ego, your future over your history. You no longer try to convince someone to treat you right. You no longer wait for them to realize your worth through the drama. You no longer beg for clarity where there is only confusion. You understand that emotional maturity means walking away not because you don't care, but because you care about yourself too much to stay in something that's costing you your sanity. You detach from anything that disturbs your nervous system. Your inner world is your home now, and you guard it like it matters, because it does, and people feel that shift. They notice the space you create, the silence that speaks louder than your words used to, the boundaries you hold, not with anger, but with authority. You're not rude, you're not cold. You're just not emotionally available for anything that doesn't reflect growth, respect, and mutual effort. You're no longer afraid of losing someone if it means keeping yourself. You no longer fear being misunderstood because your alignment matters more than their approval. This kind of calm becomes magnetic. Because it's rare, people are drawn to peace, especially when they're used to turbulence. But you're not creating peace to attract someone. You're creating it because you deserve it. You've done the work. You've cried the tears, you've fought the battles, and now your only fight is for peace. That's not weakness, that's wisdom, that's power, and when someone finally does come back, they'll feel it instantly. This version of you can't be accessed through chaos anymore. They'll have to meet you in the calm, or not at all. At some point on your healing journey, you stop chasing love and you start becoming it. You stop waiting for closure, validation, or their return, and you begin returning to yourself. You realize that no amount of hoping, proving, or pleasing can force someone to value you the way you deserve, and instead of trying to win someone back, you win yourself back. That shift, that deeply personal, often quiet shift, is what changes everything. Because it's not about what you want from them, it's about what you finally start giving to you. This journey isn't about forgetting or pretending you were never hurt. It's about facing the truth without fear. It's about pulling your energy away from confusion and back into clarity. It's about asking better questions, not why did they leave, but why did I stay so long in spaces that couldn't hold me? You stop performing. You stop explaining. You stop emotionally shrinking just to fit a space someone was never ready to fill. And when you start showing up fully for yourself, with boundaries, with self-respect, with inner certainty, you stop attracting chaos and start aligning with calm. Everything that used to shake you now becomes a signpost. Their silence doesn't wound, it reveals. Their inconsistency doesn't confuse, it clarifies. You don't engage in the same patterns because you're no longer the same person. And that's exactly what creates the shift in the dynamic. You're no longer the version of yourself who chased, begged, or settled. You've evolved, you've grown, and whether they come back or not, your growth is permanent. Your peace is protected. Your self-worth is no longer tied to anyone's presence or absence. And here's the truth. When you stop trying to be chosen and start choosing yourself, you become unforgettable. You become magnetic, not because of how hard you try, but because of how deeply you embody your own value. That energy doesn't chase, it doesn't beg, it doesn't perform, it attracts. And suddenly, what once ran from you begins to move toward you, not because you pulled, but because you released. You became unavailable for drama, distraction, and doubt. In that space you created, that's where something real can finally arrive. So no, the transformation isn't loud. It doesn't always announce itself. But once you've made it, nothing is ever the same again, because when you finally do this, when you detach, when you rise, when you stop chasing and start becoming, he can feel it, they all feel it, and if he's meant to come back, he won't stay away. Not because you demanded it, but because your evolution left no other option, and even if he doesn't, you'll know you didn't lose anything. You found yourself, and that is the real win. Always, thank you for being here, for showing up, and for choosing yourself today. Your time, your attention, and your presence are deeply valued, and if this message spoke to something inside you, it's because you're ready for more peace, more clarity, more you. Remember, the most powerful transformations don't always happen in loud moments. They happen in the quiet decisions you make to no longer settle, to rise, to detach, and to become. That's where your power lies. That's where your peace begins. If no one told you today, you are enough as you are. You are worthy of real love, deep respect, and a life that feels like alignment, not anxiety. Keep choosing yourself, keep protecting your energy, and keep becoming the version of you that doesn't have to chase anything to be valued. Until next time, take care of your heart, trust the process, and know this. Everything you're building within is already shaping the world around you. Thank you and goodbye for now. You've got this.